Hello, good afternoon. Hope everybody's having a good day. We'll get started in a few minutes. It is a beautiful and warm day, unseasonably so, here in Kansas City. And yeah, it's kind of hard in this room where I have my workspace to keep it cool, regardless of the season. So I've got the window open. I would love to. These windows over to my left are south facing, so the sun's pouring right in through that window. I would love to close the blinds so it doesn't get so hot in here, but I need the light so you all can see me. Got a really kind of anemic lighting situation in here, but looking forward to today. Not really sure what we'll accomplish today, but I was looking back at what we've done in the past, and also um, my some of the things that we haven't touched in a while. Um, and I realized that we didn't really finish converting all of the collision stuff into events. So there's a few systems that I'd like to update to use events instead of iterating over the collider itself. So I think we can do that, and that'll clean some things up. Maybe we'll get back to LDTK, which I need to make sure I have open. Um, and maybe we'll get some stuff planned out, get some more interesting things in our game level, and see if we can figure out those coordinate system issues that we had last time and make sure that everything is showing up in the right space. So yeah, I think we can get started in a minute. Welcome to the stream. Say hi if you want. Um, yeah, cool. So let's talk about collisions and events, and we'll get started fixing those systems. Okay. So in a previous stream, we have our collision detection systems. So just to review, we have a collider, um, which is basically the specification of the bounding box of the collision. So it has, based on the the size of the entity. So basically, from the center of the entity, it has a size which gives the size of the rectangle that will be detected for collisions, and then an offset. So that's like a shift of the center of that box off of the center of the item's transform. So, and then there's a collection of collisions that have happened, and this this collision event is created by two systems. I'm sorry, let's look at the structs real quick, the other structs. So there's collision damage. So this is if like a weapon hits an enemy or an enemy hits the player, we want to inflict damage on that other entity. Um, so this is a component that is put on the thing inflicting the damage, not receiving it. And then we have an event, which is just the two entities that collided. And there's some convenience functions on our collider. But the two systems here that operate over those are detect collisions, which takes a query that finds all of the entities and their transforms that have colliders. And it will collect the collisions for each of those. So what entity is being collided with, and what things is colliding with it, um, and and then it just stores those into that collider struct. So it puts those in collisions. And then there's a second system, which we could combine these and maybe just do events. It would also cut down on the space used, but I'm not really concerned about that yet. But this just loops through all of the entities that have colliders. And this is parameterized so that we can only emit collision events for certain kinds of entities, or entities that have certain components on them, rather. And this just sends a new collision event for every entity that this one collided with. So you can see we're creating this collision event. So this is where we're branching off all of our other functionalities. So in combat, in taking damage, and in avoiding walls, this is where we are emitting those so that we can handle those downstream. One example where we used that was in health. So this take damage system says the T and the E. So this is the type of game entity taking the damage, and the type of game entity inflicting the damage. And this takes an event reader. So the event reader will read those collision events, and we just loop through them. And then we check, is this an entity that has health? So this is what the receiver is. It has health. It has this marker type, as well as it's not on cooldown. So they're not in an invulnerability period. And if it gets that, it continues. And then if there is something, if the thing that it collided with inflicts damage, then we continue. Otherwise, we'll. If we inflict damage, we'll keep going in this. Otherwise, we'll go to the next item in the list. So it's not really a list; it's an iterator, but you get my point. And then we're subtracting the health, and since health is it has an amount which is a U32, then it can't go below 0. So we have to use a saturating subtraction there, rather than a overflowing subtraction, which would wrap it around to max, and then your item would never die. And then the other thing it does is if there's a cooldown set, so like what is the invulnerability cooldown of this thing? This is really only applies to the player, but we might have other things that get a brief immunity from damage. Then it will add this damage cooldown duration to the entity that is received the collision. So this is an example of one that uses our event reader on these collision events. And I realized that there are other things that we can apply that to that we haven't yet. So that's what I've been trying to get around to. Long-winded way of saying this is what we need to do. So the one that we haven't fixed is knockback. So combat right now includes the knockback. So you can see here we are the apply knockback probably doesn't need to change. I might want to refactor this a little bit for clarity, but and there's part of me, maybe it's my work day. I'm working on an application that lets you create 2D animations, and there's easings everywhere, and I feel like knockback should have an easing on it, but we can do that later. The real problem is this. Note that this iterates over the this iterates over the colliders. So like you're saying this thing is something that was collided with, this is the thing that received the collision, and we don't actually need to do that. We have the events. So let's look back up at our plugin. Note that it only takes knockback collisions from, so players are knocked back by ghosts. Ghosts are not knocked back by anything else. And there's no other entities that are knocked back here. So I think we can fix this knockback collisions so it'll only operate over events, and it'll look a little bit more like what we did here in health, right, on this take damage system. So let's do that. We can leave the parameters here, I think, and we're going to need to change the queries. So we're going to need an event reader, a collision event, just like we did on the other system. So, right. And then I'm going to rename these queries, and they're going to be drastically simplified. So what we need is we need the receiver. I like receiver as a little bit better. So this is going to take the entity. We don't need the collider anymore. But we do need the transform still. Transform. And I think that we had a thing where I didn't understand. You can put these marker components in, in the filter type. So we'll do that. Let's see. Okay, so we need the entity and the transform. And let's look at what we did on health. So we don't care about if it has a collider on it. We only care about whether it fits these filter types. So we'll do something similar here. So we can say this is with T, right? And without knockback. Okay, so there's our first query. That's replacing collide. We don't need collider anymore, and we don't need this and T because we were never using it anyway. Okay, and then we need the, what do we call it in health? Damager. Let's call it pusher. It's pushing the player. Okay, so we need its transform. We use this to compute the direction of the collision. So we know how much or what direction the player should be pushed back. And that's going to be with, we don't have to have collider, we just have to have C, I think. Because we don't care if it has a collider. We already know that if it's in a collision event, we've processed its collider. So this should be simpler. So let's, without changing any of that, let's loop over the okay, and event is going to be a collision event. So we can do like we did before. We can say let what do we call it? We have pusher, and I don't want to use receiver in here again, like rename it. That would be bad. Let's call it pushed receiver get event dot entity else continue. So we're doing a very similar pattern to what we did over here, right? So we don't need to get mute because we don't have any mutable borrows in here. We just need to do get. Okay. And then we will do let OK of rename this. This is bad, but this will let us. Maybe we could say this is receivers and this is colliders or pushers, plural. Receivers. I don't really like this word, but you know, it'll be okay. So again, if the thing that this entity is colliding with is not something that can trigger a knockback, um, then we just go to the next event in the stream. Okay, and then finally, we have the commands like we did before. So we're gonna do. I think we can just mostly copy this part and reword it. We need to. Okay, interesting. And this is something I didn't think about. But what we did here is we summed the direction of the knockback based on all of the things that this entity was colliding with, and that's why we used the whole collider. So I think what we might need to do is add those up. Hi, I'm MAACL72. Yes, I'm generally happy with Zed for Rust development. It's worked fairly well for me out of the box, and I used to be last summer, I think, is when I changed over to Zed. I'd been using Emacs before for like 13, 14 years, and I got tired of it being too slow. And while generally I prefer key combo type navigation, Zed is actually pretty good, and I haven't felt like I've been slowed down by it. So it's also just beautiful. Like I think the text rendering is really great. So yes, I'm happy with it, and I didn't have to bother really with much installing Rust Analyzer, and it always felt like it was a slog on Emacs to get it right. So, okay. So actually, I'm not gonna do this yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make uh, we're gonna make a hash map here. Um, we'll call it knockbacks. Knockbacks. And this is going to be a hash map. And we want this to be a hash map of entity to vec3. And rather than this, like what we did before, we're summing them up. We'll sum them up as we go. So let's do knockbacks.entry. And that's not receiver, event.entity, right? We'll say this is a direction. So we're getting what it was before, or default, right? And then we want to say direction plus equals, okay, so the receiver was going to be, and here's the thing, we don't need this entity in here. We just need its transform, right? So I'm going to change that. So transform, let's call it that. And this is the pusher transform. That makes it a little bit more clear what we're pulling out of these queries. So the direction is going to be basically what we did down here. So receiver transform translation minus pusher transform translation. So we're adding that up, and then we can move this down here. Okay, and then after we've processed all the events, we'll go and apply the knockbacks. So let's do event.entity. That's surely borrowed. I guess we'll find out. Okay, so for entity and direction in knockbacks dot intuiter, because we're going to consume it. Let's see if that works. Entity and vec3. Okay. By the way, both of those are copy, so I'm not actually concerned about it. But here's where we'll do this, like we did before. So now we get the entity, commands for this entity, and insert the knockback component, giving it a displacement. Yes, it's very pretty. By the way, you can change the themes. I use Groovebox Dark, but change the themes really easily. Loving Zed. Also, they just recently opened up their source. So if you want to write some Rust and work on a text editor, it seems like a pretty good place. Okay. So, and I think this is going to be sufficient. I'm concerned that with what the changes we made to our world, that testing this is going to be a little bit hard. Right. Okay, so we're going to be, it doesn't allow plus equals on a reference. What's going on there? Yeah, let's do this. Is not right. I think what I want to do is let's compute this first. Remove those parens, right? And then we're going to do, we will say the thing is we don't need the mutable reference. I want to do, let's say we'll do and modify, which takes a closure of direction. And that's going to be, I don't know if this is any better. Add a sign, push direction. Or insert with, actually just or insert push direction. Okay. Yeah, I think that's better. It's really weird that I had to call add a sign directly rather than just do plus equals, because that worked before. Let's see if we can do this. Yeah, it doesn't like that. Oh, it's just that I didn't do this. Interesting. Let's put it back. It likes that. It's fine. I don't really like doing the, the direct call on that, but okay. Um, all right. So receivers does not need to be mutable. Yep, because I'm not taking any transform mutably. Okay. This feels a little better because it's consistent. Um, and let's look for any other queries where we have collider on it that aren't directly in here in this file. So we're not using this anymore, right? Let's look at, okay, it's fine to initialize that. We might make this I think we have talked about it before, we might make it a bundle. And then this is on the levels, this is setting up our walls based on or their collision boxes, so that's fine. Yeah, we need to fix movement. This should be events, right, as well. And those are just initializing colliders, so that's fine. Let's look at, yeah, let's look at this. And I think that we can change this to collision event. And let's go down here. So keep inside walls. We need to do a similar thing to what we did in the other files. Okay. So what we want is, let's say, events, event reader, collision event. Okay. And we don't care about the collider anymore. There. We don't care about it here, because we'll be getting events for those, right? Let's make sure over in here that we are, yeah, this one is not parameterized with any type, so it'll happen for any entity that has a transform and a collider, which is exactly right. Now the handle collisions, this is fine. Right. So this is only parameterized for things that should have actions taken on them when they collide with something. Whereas, like, so we're not doing any like environment modification yet. So like walls don't take damage, walls don't get knocked back. So there's no reason to have or to be concerned with emitting events for the things that walls collide with, but we do want to emit events for the things that can move. So we have no concern that this that there will ever be an entity that falls into this query, but not this one. Okay. Except that for the sake of the type system, we have to give this without wall on it, just to make sure they don't overlap. There's something weird about the world queries that they cannot overlap. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to move this down. And we are going to say for event in events.read, just like we did in the other one. And Okay, so here's where we'll do something similar. So we'll say let OK um, object transform query dot get mute, and that's going to be event dot entity else continue. So again, if this is not something that matches this type, then we will just move on. So there are some things that we don't care about keeping inside walls, other things that we do care about. And it's giving me problems here. What's wrong there? It's complaining about collider, which is no longer on this type. Okay, and then we will say, so the wall transform. The other thing is that we actually need to get the colliders, and I forgot about that. This is not a problem, but we need that for the dimensions of the collision box, right? Okay, so this is going to be transform let's call this object transform and object collider, and this needs to be mute, and then this will be wall transform and wall collider. Not query, we want walls.get, and this will be event.collided with, like we did before. So again, we're only getting things that match, we're only caring about collision events that match this query. That's what these two first statements are doing. Okay, so so then we can do let object rect like we did before, and we'll take the object collider to rect at object transform. Okay, similar to what we did before. And then let's do the wall rect, and I may just go ahead and copy these. Yeah. Okay. And then we get the overlap. So how much are they overlapping? What is the intersection of the rectangles, basically? And then we do this stuff. So this is not any different than what we did before. So if the width is less than the height of this overlap, then we choose the width amount to push away. Otherwise, it's the height. And that's probably not completely accurate, but it was good enough for us for this time. And then this needs to be object transform. Okay. Okay, so again, pretty simple. We still need that collider. We can have Rust Analyzer fix that for us. Import that. Thank you. Okay, so let's see if there's anywhere else that we're using collider where we're not in a system where there's not events, and this should be the only one, right? And this creates the collision events. Okay. And this is the one we just changed. And this is only setting the player's collider. Cool. So I think we're good on that. I'm gonna go ahead and make a commit, and we'll start looking at LDTK stuff and see if we can get. Yep. Okay. Convert remaining collision systems to use events. We'll probably have other systems that use colliders in the future, but we can deal with that later. Okay, that feels pretty good. All right, let's spin up our game. Uh, Now, one thing I've had to do, unfortunately, uh, in the intervening time, Bevy 013 has been released. I don't think that everything is updated for it yet. Maybe uh, maybe we could watch the LDTK plugin to see if it gets updated. But right now, we're kind of working on the older version. And we've got some warnings we can fix in a minute. Okay, so our player still moves around. Um, I'm not seeing. Oh, here come the ghosts. And the collision's still working there. Let's see if our knockback. Yep, our knockback still works. Cool. Looking good. Um, and then the only other thing, the thing that's going to be hard to test because I think our camera system's not correct. Um, let's see if I can take the character up to the top of the screen. So it should be trying to keep the character in the center, but I think last time we disabled. Yeah, I can't really test if it's keeping inside walls because the camera is not following correctly. Um, and if I recall correctly, yeah. So I made this entity camera bundle to position the camera in the world at a starting spot. And then we played with this system that we had written previously, and we got into a mess, and it wasn't right. Um, Part of it has to do with the coordinate systems being significantly different. By the way, this is JSON. I don't know if I can configure Z to recognize this file type as JSON, but looking at this, there might be something that we can use in that system to make sure that it's correct. The documentation on the crate is kind of so-so. The narrative content, the prose content is it's only good so far to get through the tutorial, and the rest of it is kind of difficult and incomplete. So yeah, I don't know if reading this is going to help. Yeah, that's not. That's all the tiles. Okay. Yeah, I don't know that this is looking at this is going to help us at all. It is interesting to know that, it's just JSON. So, um, how about we start by simplifying this, and not not caring about the level borders yet. I think that makes sense. And then we will, um, and then we'll be able to start with just make it have the same translation as the player. I think that's a reasonable way to go. So let's just comment all this out, and let's change this into player dot get single else return, right? Similar to what we did up there. And then we will, let's say camera transform dot translation. We're not using the projection right now, so let's just underscore that. Player transform dot translation. Right, and we were clamping. I think this is fine. And yeah, let's just comment all of that out, because we're going to have to figure out how to work with the dimensions of the level. And it's not entirely clear how to do that correctly yet. So let's add this system back and see if we can at least get the camera following the player exactly. And then we can figure out how to compute the min and max camera position. Now, if you weren't on a previous stream, why we did that was so that as the player gets close to the border of the level, we don't need the camera to go beyond the border of the level. It can just stop, and then the player can like move up to the edge. But the camera would still be like, I know what my viewport is, and I'm not going to go outside the bounds of the level, which has a really nice feel to it. But for the player, but like unless I can get this reliably, and I can get the computation right, I think this is part of our problem last time. It's just going to be a pain, and it may be something that I want to defer for a later date. Okay, so let's run that again, and I messed that up because I put the semicolon in the wrong place. Okay, let's run, and we can go back and fix warnings if we want. Okay, so now you can see it's a little jittery, but the camera is following the player. And now we can see, and so what I would love is when the player gets to here, roughly, right, this should stop moving. But now we are going up, and here's the outside boundaries, and I just wanted to make sure that, well, our collision is kind of off there. The positioning, I think, is incorrect on those colliders. It'd be nice if we could draw those collisions. It's interesting that it's only happening on the wall. It seems like fairly close to correct on the enemy collisions, and I panicked. Okay, that's interesting. So there's an ordering issue here. We added knockback to the player, but the player had lost all its health. So we'll need to maybe consider reordering those systems. Okay. So let's look at the. I wonder if there's something in Bevy we can use. Let's look at their stuff. There's this AABB gizmo I've seen in a couple places. Oh, this is Bevy 13. Let's look at 12.1, which is what we're using. Okay, so there's a gizmo component. To draw its AABB component. What I want to draw is the bounding box of the collider. So I think that would be useful. Maybe there's a basic like shape. So we have like the rect defined by two opposite corners, right? This is we're using to do our collision detection. I wonder if there's a shape bundle. I thought I saw one. Let's just search for it. Shape. Generated for primitive shape meshes. Okay, so I think this is 3D. Yeah. And we're doing it's probably fine. We could draw a quad. Because what I would like to do, I'd like to draw an outlined rectangle. One thing we could do is go back and look at the this gizmo and see what it implements or the systems that it's called by. Like, why don't we just go to the source? And we will look in the Bevy crate. We're going to have to do some spelunking here, folks. There's Bevy Gizmos crate. See if there's a generic way to add a gizmo. Maybe there's a plugin in here that adds something. Okay, so there's a gizmo plugin. So there's this plugin, which we saw. Okay, so maybe we can add some lines of some sort. There's a line gizmo asset. That's different than what I expected. Okay. There's this init gizmo group, which I guess we could look at this gizmo config group. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at 013 and I need to be looking at 012. My mistake. There. Okay. So gizmo config. Resource that still stores configuration for gizmos. Okay. Right, okay. Render layers. Gizmos will only be rendered to cameras with intersecting layers. It's just default. Okay, so this is interesting. They're taking the global transform and the bounding box of an entity, and if it has a gizmo. Um, okay, and then this is some kind of command object, it looks like. Draw AABBs. There's a gizmo config. Okay, so the color. And then it's computing some transform there. The thing is, I don't actually care about the access aligned bounding box, but maybe what we could do is something like pull in this stuff and use some of the things they do here to draw our own gizmo. I think that would be good. Yeah, this is just, okay. Okay. With scale, yeah. Producing a transform, just following that stuff. Okay. Um, in this asset. Okay. So they're they got two systems here. It looks like they've got the update gizmo message meshes and then the draw and post update. I guess update is where you run your game logic. Post update might be where it renders. But they also get this, you know, the render app as a separate thing, and then they're doing the drawing in here. We might be able to use the line gizmos. I'm not sure about that. It's a little annoying to me that this is only for bounding boxes, because I would love to be able to have this system down here, like have this type parameterized in a way such that you could define a different box. It is maybe what we can do real quick is let's look at the prelude and see if that is exposed. So it's in primitives, center and half extents. Right, and this is in render. That's interesting. Right. Interesting. They've got a collision system. Left, right, top, bottom, inside. Fun. Okay. Maybe we should use that. Okay. But this is only, again, this is only access aligned bounding boxes, and we want collision boxes that are not necessarily the bounding box of the sprite. So maybe what I would like to do is maybe we make a little system and see if there's one of these structs on our entities, even if we didn't add it. I want to say that there's probably, we can figure that out by looking at the sprite bundle. And see if it has a bounding box on it. So we added the player with a sprite bundle, right? except that we're actually using the sprite sheet bundle. Let's look at the sprite sheet bundle. Nothing obviously, you know, it's got scale. Nothing obviously containing the bounding box, but it's not clear to me whether whether that's going to be added by something else. So let's the sprite sheet bundle. Okay, Bevy sprite. So there's the bundle. Let's look at the systems that are added by this plugin. Okay. Okay, it calculates bounds. So that's interesting. And then look at the render app. I bet, let's see if this is, where is that coming from? It might be in this file, calculate bounds 2D. Okay. This is a little bit complicated, but so it calculates and inserts a bounding box component to entities with either a mesh 2D handle or a sprite and handle image components with no frustum calling component. Those queries are expensive or are complicated to read. So all the meshes that don't have, let's see, and that runs in the main app, not in the render app. Okay. So you have meshes and images, you have the commands, you have the texture set layout, atlas layout, and you have a query for meshes that don't have a bounding box, and then sprites that need to recalculate the bounding box. This OR is interesting. I've never seen that. Okay. So for the sprites, okay, if it has a custom size, texture size of regular sprites, okay. If it's an atlas, then we get the rect size 2. Okay, so it's got the sprites anchor. This is really about the sprites, not about the object. Okay. And the half accents are the size times 0.5. Then brought into 3D, and then it, you know, tries to insert. This try insert is interesting. We could potentially use that in our thing that was panicking because the player had been deleted. Yeah. Okay. I don't know that this gets us what we want. I really would love to be able to draw my own gizmo. Just for the... I mean, we can see how it's calculating this, but wiring that up to the gizmos crate, not completely clear. Well, the other thing I thought we could do was, and maybe we can take advantage of stuff that are in here. So this is a primitive. Gizmo config group. I don't need a capsule. Line 2D. Looking for something that implements a rectangle outline. Segment 2D. Polyline. Nah. This is an area that maybe I'll look at the Bevy cheat book. Yeah. Because sometimes these things have stuff that people have already figured out. So render, don't care about that. Yeah, maybe we'll look at the working with 2D. Okay, we've already have a camera 2D bundle. Projection, yada yada, scaling mode, zooming. Right, we do that. Sprites and atlases, examples. Okay, this is the other thing that we may want to do is rather than, we can look at the examples that they have. Let's be sure that we're on the right tag here. UI, no. Look at 2D, see if they have a gizmos example. Interesting. Okay, 2D shapes. Okay, so we can use this material mesh 2D bundle. The thing is, I don't know that I want it to be solid. But we could start with that and make it like a slightly transparent color. And we'll do this as a child of the primary entity that has the collider. So yeah, let's see. Okay, we're gonna add a system. We're gonna set up collision gizmos, and we will go ahead and make this function. And I wanted to put it on a separate line so that we can potentially turn it off. So we're going to need commands so we can insert those shapes. And then what we want is a query of, I think we just want entity that had added collider. So this is going to be, I'll just call it query. And then we want to loop over the entities where they had a collider added to them. And then we want to do commands.entity. Entity. So we're getting and then I want to add a child, right? With children, yeah. So the formatter will fix that for us in a second. So we want to spawn and I think we'll do what they do here, basically a quad. We're going to have to make sure it's on top, so that's going to be interesting. Shape. We'll fix the compilation errors later. Let's see, color. We want to change the alpha on that. Yeah, this is going to be, meshes is not in this scope. So we're going to need these in our system here. Okay, and the other thing that we need here is the collider that was added, right? Because we want to make it the size of the collider. Because the collider has a rect, has some dimensions in it that we'll want to use to make this quad the correct shape. Okay, so we need to make sure we import that. It's from Sprite. Okay. Mesh 2D bundle. Material mesh 2D bundle. Okay. What else is wrong here? Okay, so we're not using the collider yet. But what we want to do is the size. Okay, this is actually being really easy. The shape of that we're going to insert is the collider dot size, right? And then the transform is going to be, because it's relative to the parent. So we're adding this to something, adding this as a child entity to the thing that was just added with the collider. So we'll do collider dot offset extend, and then we're going to put it at a higher level, so closer to the camera. So I'm going to pick 100. And the only other thing here is I think... Hi, Isaac. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, again, I want to make this so that the alpha is 1. I'm not sure if color is copy, but let's just say, let's put it up here. Color.alpha. I imagine they made that copy. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. Let's say clone here and see if the compiler complains. Alpha is, let's make it 0.25. Okay, so this is what we want. Okay, so we can actually do, we don't have to make it mute. We can pick lime green with a of 0.25, 25%. Okay, and then we'll say color. No complaints about cloning, so I think that this is probably copy. That would make sense. Okay. Now I'm not sure if this is going to work. um, I want to look at the we used that added annotation elsewhere, right? So, yep. Okay, I'm hoping this is going to work. So let's see. Um, let's see if this doesn't blow things up. Okay, so we've got a box. Look at that. That looks good. It's exactly what I wanted. Okay, and now we can see the problem. So let's get up here close to the wall. And it's not completely clear, but the size of this collider is wrong. It should be up a little bit, not down. So I think we can fix that. And let's look. Yay, we made our own gizmo. I'm very excited. Okay, so I think we might have top and bottom switched here. Let's switch this to 4 and this to -4. And I think we'll see if that's correct. Okay, let's go up. Okay, that's looking better. Let's see about colliding with that. We're still not overlapping in the way that I would like. I wonder if there's an issue with our collision system. Because now we're getting up closer to the wall, right? But there's no overlap. The player should be able to have their head like slightly above the wall, right? Those collisions look correct still. Okay. And he's dead. Okay. So I think this is the correct fix here. Let's see if the left and right are also messed up, but I don't see why they would be. So let's go all the way to the left and see that the bounding box looks correct, or the collision box. That might be correct. Interesting that that's drawing the opposite direction. Note that I'm getting all the way up to the edge here. Of course, our ghosts are still spawning outside the level. They shouldn't be able to do that. But we haven't fixed that system yet. We have a big level. Okay, well, like this was pretty successful, adding that. Except again, I think that I'm guessing that we will hit it sooner than we should. Yeah, there's something messed up with the ordering there. Because we are colliding with that before we should. So the height is correct there. The width is 6. On the right wall, we're moving it 2 pixels to the right. But it's showing yeah, that's not correct. Interesting. I wonder if we need to do this on this one as well. But it's weird to me that is correct for like the daggers intersecting the ghosts. Um, and for the player running into the ghosts, like our collision is still correct, but these are off and they're smaller. Let's look at the bottom real quick before I mess with this again. Okay, so we may need to fix that. Yeah, so we're overlapping on that when we shouldn't. We should stop right there, right? Um, okay. Nice to have those gizmos. I think what I want to do is put I want to put those gizmos on a on a feature flag or something. Yeah, we can do like if not config feature is collision gizmos return, and then it'll just, when it hits this, it just won't draw those things or won't add them. And then let's make a quick feature in here. Features default. I think it's defaults, and then we'll have collision gizmos. And it doesn't add anything to the crates or turn on anything else, but then we won't call any of this if we have that feature turned off. So if I run this again, we should not get anything shown, right? So there it is with it off. And there it is with it on. Maybe what we'll do is rather than call it collision gizmos, let's just call it gizmos, and we can turn it on and off completely. And we might do something like draw the AABB gizmos as well. It wasn't clear to me how to use that, but maybe we could do that. Oops, prelude. Oh, I'm looking in the wrong one. Let's see. Give me back. Well, let's go here. It doesn't say how to use this. I think this was in their code. It was like a resource. Make sure I'm on the right tag. Source. Okay, that's interesting. It's slightly different. Gizmo config is a resource in there. If that is what I was thinking it was. Not that. It is a resource. Okay. Yeah, so we could do something like where to put it. Maybe we'll do it in here for now. Excuse me. Startup. Enable ABB gizmos. And let's just put it down here at the bottom. Enable ABB gizmos. And then we'll say mute gizmos. Res mute gizmo config, I think it is. Yeah, let's name that consistently. And then we interesting that's not in there automatically. Is that not added? It's an init resource, so it should be in there. If it's default, right, it's a resource. Default is enabled true. Oh, right. We have to set that. Let's look for that. Right, so it defaults to draw all false. Oh, okay. To draw specific entities bounding box, you can add the AABB gizmo component. Okay, so right, and the default color. Okay, so I don't need this system. What I need to do is when we add particular things, and I think we can do this with our bundles, we'll add the gizmo. And okay, so we don't need that. So for example, like on the ghost, we can do something like config feature gizmos and add a BB gizmo. Here, let's do it without that feature. Fill struct fields. Oh, that's not right. It's not a component. We want the ABB gizmo. Okay, so the color, I think that's an option of a color. Yeah. So we want some color. Let's do purple. Right. Okay. So let's do that, and then let's do it on the player as well. But what we'll do is put in the player bundle. And this is a BB gizmo. I don't know if any of you have used conditional compilation before. We use it pretty heavily in my work because we're compiling for different targets for native and for WASM. And we also have some things that are turned on and off based on like including or not including dependencies depending on which target you're producing. So we have multiple output binaries, and like some of them need this dependency but not that one, and so we use features to turn that on and off. So here we're going to do like we did before on Ghost. We'll do this. actually the whole shooting shebang there. Let's do that. Except we'll say this is a BB gizmo. And then the only other thing that we need to do is on levels, we can add them here. So we'll do entity commands. Here, let's get a space in there. Insert. And honestly, we can do that. Yeah, let's just copy that to all of these. I was gonna say we can do that in here, but what I don't want to do. No, actually, we can do that up here because we don't care about the as long as it's a wall, right? If it's some other piece, then we're not going to care about the bounding box. All right, so let's run that. Let's make sure this still works without that feature turned on. I didn't break anything. Okay. And now let's run it with that feature turned on. And you can see hopefully you can see there's a purple outline around the player. We're not doing it on the daggers. Let's do that on the daggers as well. So here in the player, we probably need to make a dagger bundle. But let's go ahead and add that. Yeah, we can fix that later. And hopefully what we'll see is when the weapons are being thrown, it's going to be a little bit hard to see because of the color. Let's change that to like blue. Blue. Alice blue. It's got the web colors. Cool. I might want to change that all around. But you can see the collision box is not the same as the bounding box, which is what we expect. Where are my ghosts? Where are they coming from? All right, so then we've got the collision and the bounding box are the same. But if we go up here to the wall, it's really hard to see. I'm actually not seeing a bounding box on that. And I wonder if it's that it's drawing it. Let's go over to one of the sides. I wonder if that it's drawing it differently than it's drawing these. Okay, so now we've got this offset. Let's see if yeah. So switching those signs on that didn't fix it. Okay, well, we're not getting this on the walls at all. So let's switch those signs back. And I think that there was something with the config, like this gizmo config resource, Right, that's here. The line width, I think we want smaller. So maybe we can do that's not what I want. The gizmo config. I'll do config feature gizmos. I don't know if that's going to work. Maybe we'll put it at the end. No. Yeah. Honestly, we don't care. This is just, yep. Let's see if it'll draw thinner lines on those now. Yeah, so those are thinner on the daggers. The thing is, I don't actually care that much about the bounding box. I care about the collision box. So let's not. It is interesting to see. But let's remove those. All right, we can get rid of that. And we can get rid of that. And I missed one. Did I? No. Search again. Okay, yes. Oh, I missed it on the weapon. Yeah, we just don't care. So hello, iSense. Welcome to the stream. We got about 20 minutes left, maybe 25. I still don't feel like I'm closer to I still don't feel like I'm closer to knowing what the problem is with our collision boxes. Because we set up these gizmos, right? The other thing we might do is make like a 1 pixel by 1 pixel mesh that shows the center. So let's go ahead and do that. White. We don't need alpha on that. I actually want it to be really bright. Wonder what other constants are in there. Got lots of options. We could do that. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go ahead and make that center. And we'll do something like this. And this is shape quad, and we want so that size is vec2, so we want vec2 1. Yep. So it'll be 1 pixel by 1 pixel, and then we want center color here. And the transform, right, the transform is going to be the same, so we want this to be at a higher level than the box. And let's put a semicolon there. Okay. Does that return the entity commands? Yeah, so we can just chain that. What's wrong there? Okay. It doesn't like it when I do multiple. I imagine what happens is the spawn returns. Yeah, the spawn returns a new context or a new like entity, so you can insert things on that as well. But okay, let's run this and see if we get the center being drawn here. Yeah, so it's a little bit hard to see, but it's right in the middle there. And what will be interesting is when we get up here to the wall, see where, so it thinks the center is up. And yet we come up against the wall and we can't move closer to it. I'm going to make this a little bit more opaque. Because I had trouble seeing it when it's on the wall. It's fine on the player, it's fine on the ghosts. A little bit harder on the wall. Okay, because like this box looks like it's a correct to me, but we're not computing something correctly. All right, let's look at our collision. Okay. Okay, so we're looping over all entities that have a transform and a collider. Right, and we're computing all the things, all the entities that this entity is colliding with right now. What are you using to draw the screen, create windows, etc.? This is all the Bevy game engine, by the way. So what am I using? I'm not using things directly, but underneath it uses Winit for opening windows. It uses WGPU for rendering. And it's like a whole stack on top of those base components. You can look at, let's see, target debug deps. Well, it's not going to be very clear, but these are all the things it's pulling in. So, you know, that's sort of a incremental build directory. That's probably not that useful. Build. That's also not that helpful. Incremental. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's not a direct way to show you all of the things that Bevy pulls in. But yeah, it's built on top of Winit and WGPU primarily. And it has a bunch of other things too. Okay, so I'm trying to think back to, like, this should be correct. Right, so we're looping over all of the entities that have transforms and colliders, and we're looping over them again, so we're doing a cross product of them. And then if the entity B is the same as entity A, then you can't collide with yourself, so we don't register collision for that. But if the maybe it has to do with this. But if the collider for entity B, its rectangle intersects with the collision rectangle for entity A, then we push that into the collection of things that it collides with. So like there's not really that much to understand here, and this worked before. What I'm wondering is, because we were using LDTK, right? And this is our level. And if we look at the rules for the wall, then like, how did I do that? I think it was an enum wall direction, right? Yeah. Okay. So we did. I don't care about the entity kind. I think that we were doing. Okay. So this. Aha. That's a left. That makes sense. That's what we were expecting. That's right. That's top. The thing is, it's top, but it's at the bottom of the screen. It's the top of a wall. That's the bottom of the screen. And this is bottom. This is the bottom of a wall. Although, like, we're kind of misusing these a little bit. And then the corners have other stuff. Oh no, I'm not writing a game engine. I'm writing the game badly, but I'm writing a game. I'm glad you came though. Thanks for coming. Okay, so yeah, so these are attached to these tiles. So okay. Um, let's see about. Okay, so this rule, draws this tile. And this should get bottom. Let's look back at our code here that loads the level. So bottom, I think these, the weird thing is these are negative. This is a problem with the coordinate system again. It's gotta be. Because I think right, so we want this to have a height of 12. The question is whether up is positive or down is positive in this. And the weird thing is that when we run this and we go up to the top, it looks like it's being offset correctly because we want the player, to overlap with it. But the computation shows that we can't. Which is interesting. And I bet if we go to the bottom, all the way to the bottom, we'll see that the opposite is the case. Also, I need to make daggers take damage from ghosts. See, they're just going through. They're just plowing through multiple. Okay, so the box that is drawing looks correct. But I'm overlapping on it when I shouldn't be. Okay. Yeah. Any plans on writing a game in Erlang? Not right now. Although, if you are interested in that sort of thing, um, there is a wonderful presentation by Digit a while back about writing an ECS, so Entity Component System framework for Elixir, and then writing a like turn-based battle like RPG thing, yeah, with it, which is a really fun presentation. Um, but no, we're using Rust here. I have no plans to write a game in Erlang. I would have to build too much. Um, hmm. This is really odd. Um, you like because we're completely overlapping. Unless it's, but it worked before. This is the part that's frustrating. It worked before, um, and now it's not since we switched to LDTK. Really kind of difficult. Hmm. So the odd thing too is that it's actually registering a collision there. It's just the overlap is incorrect. No, I killed the ghost. Um, Good question is how Zed for you? What did you use before that? Yeah, I've been really enjoying using Zed, especially for things that use language servers. It's really great. I used it on some Elixir stuff in the fall. By the way, all that's on my YouTube. Um, and it used like you turn on NextLS. Mitch Heinberg's a internet pal of mine. But oh, my character's dead. Okay. Um, the but yeah, it's been great to use Zed. So I would recommend it if you're on Mac, and you want something a little bit graphical. I was using Emacs before, um, and I had so many problems with it. Now I only use it for org mode because nothing else implements org mode. Um, but yeah, this has been pretty good for me to use Zed. Okay, so why would it draw it correctly but not collide correctly? It is colliding, but it's offset incorrectly. All right, so let's run it one more time. I want to look at the left and right walls. Um, and I suppose I could use a different level that's smaller. Save us some time. Um, okay, so this is interesting that this is out from the edge, which is a reasonable amount out from the edge, but then you can't move on top of that at all. Whereas when we go to the left, um, it might be the opposite. I might have to look back at our Git history and see what we did on those individual wall segments. Because previously we were spawning them as single entities that had a bunch of child entities, one for each tile. Um, yeah, and this one we can overlap. Wild. So it's like sort of inverted. Again, it makes me wonder if it's a coordinate system thing because you can see that on the left and bottom, you can go over it, but on the top and right, we never even hit the box. Okay. So left and bottom we overlap. Right and top we never hit it. And I remember last time when we were looking at this, we moved this. So like there was this XY plane here. And then we moved it because it was like, what's the key to scroll? Okay. We moved it because it was down here. We moved it up into this upper right quadrant based on Chris Biscardi's suggestion. Yeah, I'll add the link to the YouTube on my Twitch. But it's YouTube/Sean Cribbs or something. It's pretty easy to find. Interesting. There is this. What if we do 0? Yeah, so if we do 0, it moves it down. Negative 1200 moves it back up. This is really bizarre to me. And again, it somewhat has to do with this, I think, because they've got to be using like positive is down, but it should be handling that, and you would expect if that were the problem, then only the top and bottom would be wrong, but the left and right are flipped as well. And again, I can switch these offsets. Oh, my character's dead again. So we're going up, going up, going up. I need to get something more interesting than just dirt, but okay. And here, the weird thing too is that we've still got 1 pixel that we can go, so we're not even completely coming up against the edge of that tile. I mean, the system is keeping us off the walls correctly. That's good. Might get some weirdness when we get in here in the corner. We'll see. But if we go up against this right wall, we're off by about the width of that tile. Okay, let's put these all back to 0 and see what happens, and then we can then we can tweak them, because it's what I want to see as well is if they aren't modified, right? If we go up against the wall, did I not? Oh, that's wild. Okay. I mean, that looks like the center of the thing. Yeah, so let's try one more time. I thought I saved it. We might need to print some stuff out on the console. To get to know what we're doing here. Yeah, this is really bizarre. Okay, yeah, let's get to. Is it in this? No. Right. So we had keep inside walls. Yeah. So let's go and let's look at. We're gonna print some stuff out on the console. Um, let's just do that here. Don't let anybody ever tell you that printf debugging doesn't work. I use it all the time. Overlap. Okay. Okay, so now what we're going to do is when we run into the wall, we'll print out what is colliding to the console. Can you briefly oh, okay, so actually we have some things happening there. Yeah. Oh, the ghosts are running into the walls like crazy. Let's let for now. Let's let the ghosts flow through the walls, and then then we'll see. Because they're spawning outside them anyway, which is kind of ridiculous. But we'll let them fly through the walls. It's fine. They're ghosts. What is org mode? Org mode is a productivity mode in Emacs that has outlining and scheduling and stuff like that. So, okay, so interesting. The box being drawn does not cover the whole tile. But when we get up close there, we are overlapping. So the player was, yeah. I'm not overlapping physically, and yet. Okay. Min is that, max is that. Why are we... Oh, the ghosts are knocking me into the wall. Okay. The overlap. Right. Yep, it's fine. Okay. So there is an overlap there. Although interesting, that has width or height 0 or near 0. Okay, so I think that we need to probably have a check in here about if either of the dimensions of this intersection are 0 or close to 0. That said, it's happening well before it should. I don't know what's going on there, but it is interesting to me that here we go. It is interesting to me that what we're getting here is this height of 0. Um, and we should honestly be getting the max X on the wall being really consistent, right? 1190. Yeah, it is. Okay. And the top should be consistent as well because we were running into the wall on the top of the map, 1178. Um, but look at the object here. It's 1164. And 1180. All right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So this is 1208 to 1240. Yeah. Okay. So it is from the bottom left. That's interesting. Um, and what if we add back that okay, but here's the other thing is we didn't change the size, we just changed the offset. So like this is only, the left wall is only 6 wide, but it's 16 pixels tall. And this one, 16 pixels tall, but it's only 12, or 16 pixels wide, but it's only 12 pixels tall. And we didn't offset it, so it might be on the bottom. But again, I wonder if this has to do with centered coordinate systems versus anchored coordinate systems. And our collider is working in the world space. And so while we're drawing it correctly, based on the world space, there's some conversion problems. All right. Thanks for staying on late, Tuxified. Sleep well. And I think I ought to wrap at this point. We have not figured this out, but I will, in the next week, do some research, see if there's some issue with how LDTK and the plugin that we're using handles those sorts of coordinate system changes, and we'll figure out what to do there. In the meantime, I'm going to commit and push this stuff that we have done today, and so you'll be able to see it. And I'll probably omit the changes to the wall offsets. Yeah, let's just omit that because I think that's wrong. Like the theory behind our stuff is right, but the positioning is incorrect. So we'll need to figure out what's going on there. Okay. Thank you all for coming. It's been really good. And let's do it again next week. We'll do some more Rust. We'll do some more Bevy engine, and hopefully we'll figure this problem out. Thanks so much for coming. See you next week.